Welcome to another episode of the Unwanted Opinions podcast. Jay and I are back recording on a Monday night, about 7 o'clock Eastern time. We've got the Bucks and the Heat going right now, game one. Jay and I are going to preview that series. We're also going to talk about the Celtics Raptors that just started yesterday. Some of these other unbelievable performances and just good series that we're getting now and going into the future. So a lot of good NBA playoff stuff going on right now. Yannick Ngakoue was just traded to the Vikings, so Jesse and I will touch on that briefly. But first, Jay, how are you today, man?
Good.
Tonight,
I feel good. It was Monday. Well, yeah, tonight. I feel good. This is probably my favorite matchup of the second round going on right now between Miami and Milwaukee because I think they're two very good teams, and I told you last week that I just love watching Miami play. They move the ball well. They move around well. They just play as a team, and they're fun to watch. They hit threes. They play defense. So really, I'm excited that the game's going on right now. Same. There's a lot of good matchups in round two, whereas round one, I didn't think there were that many.
No, I mean, there really weren't. Well, I mean, there were some, I guess, but I mean, yeah, round two is where you're definitely going to see a lot of the good teams playing each other because we've talked about it before, kind of 1 through 6 in at least every conference was pretty good. Obviously, you got better teams in the West than you do the East, but that seems to be true almost every single year. But before we dive into any of those playoffs, Jay, I just want to briefly touch on this Yannick Ngakoue trade because the thing I thought was just absolute gut punch to Jacksonville. First of all, they just cut Leonard Fournette today. So basically that entire 2017 AFC Championship team is basically gone. I mean, they really have nobody on that roster except for Miles Jack and a few other guys. But he took a $5.8 million pay cut to facilitate this trade to the Vikings because he didn't want to play in Jacksonville that badly. That doesn't say something about what is going on in Jacksonville. I don't know.
Because he would have been
does.
A free agent next year. If he could have just waited one more year and collected his extra $6 million, 96% of the NFL would have done, even if they were unhappy. Yeah, Jacksonville's a shit show.
That's terrible.
I saw where I'm trying to think of all the players that were on it, all the first round picks they've had in the last 6 or 7 drafts or something, dating all the way back to, was it Justin Blackmon or who was the receiver
out of? Yeah, they took Justin Blackmon out of Oklahoma State.
Yeah, there's been every single first round pick I believe that they've taken since then is no longer on the team.
That's terrible. I mean, Jacksonville.
I'm assuming it was up to a certain year because obviously they still have last year's first round pick, pass rusher out of Kentucky.
Yeah, Josh Allen.
Yeah. So it's just if you would have saw all the players they've whiffed on, and not even whiffed on, they just don't give second contracts to. They trade them. The guys are unhappy and leave, in this situation, or they want out. I don't know. That Jacksonville is going to be the team that goes to the London or whenever they decide to put another team in. Jacksonville, to me, is clear as day, going to be the expansion team that just they're the ones moving.
Yeah,
and hopefully they can get a better coach, better aura around the team where people actually want to play there. Because right now it looks like Jacksonville is going to continuously be bad for a long, long time.
Yeah, they've been really bad outside of that one year. I mean, they made the playoffs a few times in the late 2000s with Byron Leftwich or David Garrard at quarterback. But aside from that, I mean, they've basically been a joke of a franchise, really. And I mean, Coach Coughlin tried to go in there and instill a lot of old school type mentality, and it just didn't work, and it rubbed players a lot of the wrong way. So that has a lot to do with why they're not there. I think Shad Khan, the owner, tries to dip his hand in a little bit too much. Doug Marrone, he also is kind of that old school type mentality where it just doesn't sit well with players. And I mean, it does, but you have to have a certain pedigree, like a Bill Belichick or someone of that nature, to get away with those type of things, if you will. But nobody on Jacksonville has that credibility to where somebody is going to do that. And like you said, they just don't pay anybody. They have got so much talent. They've drafted pretty well. It's just outside of the first round, because, I mean, they had some whiffs, but you see Jalen Ramsey's going to go produce for the Rams. Dante Fowler, once he left Jacksonville, had the best couple years of his career. I mean, who knows what Leonard Fournette's going to be able to do, but you just see some of these players that they just leave and do better things. So, but I really love this trade for Minnesota, because that was something that they were really lacking, was another pass rusher. Because, I mean, now you pair him with Danielle Hunter and Mike Zimmer's defense. Oh my gosh. I mean,
they were able to bring back
Anthony Barr. They still got Kendricks, Harrison Smith. Yep. They got Anthony Harris still back there. I mean, so that's definitely going to help out their young secondary, because they got a lot of new corners. They just drafted the kid from TCU. I'm blanking on his name, in the first round.
Jeff Gladney.
There you go. So you just got young guys in the secondary on the outside, and that's your best friend as a pass rush that can get there without having to blitz a lot of guys. So you stay in coverage and just rush 4, 5, 6 guys. I mean, yeah, I really like the trade for the Vikings.
Because, I mean, I was all over the Vikings last year. I was a fan of what their roster looked like, and I thought they could win a lot of games. And once they lost Everson Griffin this offseason, and then who's the guy that opted out on their D-line that they signed in free agency at D-tackle? Michael Pierce. So, you guys could have had going in right on the D-line, which is probably, I don't know, arguably the most important part of a defense. And to replace Everson Griffin, who was still producing, but to me, there's no question Ngakoue is a better player than Everson Griffin. So you upgrade at defensive end.
Definitely at this point in their careers.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Okay. Not overall career, but right now.
Yeah.
You pair him with Danielle Hunter, who I've said on this podcast, you might have said as well, is one of the most underrated players in all of football. A superstar that doesn't get talked about a lot in the same breath. He's like a Chandler Jones, just consistently puts on the sack numbers every year and just doesn't really get talked about.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So you put those two on the same team on opposite sides. There's not a tackle duo in the NFL that I would take over the two defensive ends rushing them.
Yeah, I get it. I really like this trade for them,
and what they gave up for it.
Only
this
a
was
second
all
and
Jacksonville
a fifth,
was asking for. I texted you and I said, man, if that's all they wanted, the Colts should have went after him. And you said, man, if that's all they wanted, every team in the NFL should have went after him. And you're right.
I mean, to get a guy of that caliber, I mean, he's continually produced since he came into the league, even as a rookie. I think he has at least had 8 sacks in the 4 years that he's been in the league, or 3 years, however long it is. But, I mean, he's consistently produced. And to pair him on that D-line, he's just going to continually produce and be awesome in Minnesota. And he may lead the league in sacks next year. I don't know.
That's a big feat to accomplish, but I get where you're going with it, because he has more talent
to do it
around him as well that people have to pay attention to. Whereas I think everybody believes that Jacksonville defense of 2017 or 18, that took him to the national championship, AFC championship game. That hasn't been that defense since that loss to New England.
No,
the day they lost to New England, that defense has never been the same. So the past couple of years, he's been working with below average defense for sure, and everybody's been able to, focus all their attention and game plan to him, and that's not the case in Minnesota. There's way too many guys coming after you to be able to double him on every play.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, well. We just wanted to briefly touch on that because we kind of been monitoring that situation for a while, because it was clear that he wanted out and he was not going to play for them. So they finally got him out. Obviously, Jacksonville's rebuilding, but they've just shown that they're just flat bad at it. I mean, they've had picks and stuff, so they just really need to make do with all these picks that they have in the next couple of years, because I think I saw that they have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds again next year.
Yep.
So, yeah. All right. Let's move on to some of this playoff stuff. Let's start actually just with the game tonight, Jay. We got the Bucks and the Heat. I mean, the Bucks and the Heat just kind of made ends meet of the Pacers. They beat them so bad. It really didn't beat them that badly, but the Pacers fired Nate McMillan, which didn't make much sense because they had just given him a contract extension about 2 weeks prior, but that just doesn't make any sense to me. That's neither here nor there, not what we're talking about. And then Milwaukee beats Orlando, although it really wasn't that impressive. Their gentleman's sweep of the Magic, it To me, they didn't look all that great. Miami looked fantastic. I like Miami in this series. I know they're currently
down 11.
They're down 11 after the first quarter. Milwaukee just came out and kind of blitzed them, but I like Miami in 6 in this series. I really do. I don't care what happens tonight. You've seen in a lot of series over this postseason, past years, you just can't overreact to game ones. You just can't do it. And they just have everything that goes well or is bad for what the style of defense Milwaukee wants to play. I mean, they gave up the most threes. They got the team shot the best percentage of threes against them all season long. Miami was like second in three-point percentage. I think second in threes made throughout the season. You just have a plethora of guys who can honestly just create off the dribble for Miami. They got a lot of bodies you can throw at Giannis. So I just really like the makeup of this team, and they're so well coached. Jay, you were talking about it a little bit right before we started talking about the Ngakoue trade, how they move the ball so well. They play hard every single night. So I really just like Miami in this. I think there's a lot. I see a lot of people picking the Heat too. I really do.
Yeah, like you spelled out, to me it's a nightmare mismatch for Milwaukee. We've been saying this since round 1 that if they saw them in round 2, we might be picking the Heat. And I think we both said on the last podcast we were going to pick the Heat, and I still stick to it. I mean, that first quarter, Milwaukee shot the lights out. They made like everything they were throwing up. They went 6 of 9 from 3 and made 63% of their shots. So I don't expect that to continue the rest of this game. Maybe Milwaukee does win this game.
Even if they do, told you, I'll still take Miami.
I didn't say put my finger on 6 games like you did, but I am taking Miami in this series, partly because I told you Orlando's not going to be able to do it. But last year, the Raptors showed you a game plan on how to stop the Bucks. I understand Giannis has gotten a little bit better as 3, but you have said this before, and I agree 1,000%. They're going to go under the screen every time, no matter if Giannis hits 8 in a row. They don't believe that he's going to beat them from 3, and they're willing to live and die by Giannis making those threes.
Yep.
So, to me, I think Jimmy Butler is going to pretty much take out Middleton in this series, even though he didn't really show up last series. But I believe he's basically going to.
He had like 2 points in a game in their last series against Orlando, which is just terrible. And he didn't play well at all. And I mean, to your point about it, Milwaukee just came out and blitzed them really in the first quarter. I mean, you might see a game or two where Miami goes like 12 of 40 from 3. And then you might see a game where they go 28 for 45. I mean, they might.
Well, the thing was, even in the first quarter of this game, Miami shot 4 of 9, which is 45 or 44% from 3, which is a good number. But the Bucks shot 67%.
Yeah,
from the
exactly. 3. And I mean, I think exactly they'll turn it up a notch, and I mean, you'll see that's really where also the Bucks. I mean, to think about it, there's a lot of pressure that the Bucks is on them. I mean, because Giannis can be a free agent after next season. Mike Budenholzer has continuously been outcoached in big playoff series when he was with Atlanta last year against Toronto. I mean, he hasn't had that much playoff success. So there is a lot of pressure on them to make it to the finals. There's no pressure on Miami to make it to the finals. I mean, no one even thought they would be here in this second round when Jimmy Butler said, okay, I'm going to go to the Heat this offseason. No one expected this Duncan Robinson really to come out of nowhere, Tyler Hero to play this well, Bam Adebayo to take this leap from a 9-point game guy to a 16, 10, and 5 all-star season who's probably going to be on a first or second all-defensive team this year, possibly third-team All-NBA. So, I mean,
at the time that Jimmy Butler went there, I don't believe, unless my memory's wrong, we knew Iguodala was going to be on the Heat.
I mean,
who brings a lot of
they got him at the trade
experience.
Deadline.
Me and you both really, really like Eric Spoelstra as a head coach. He has clearly won before. He can win again. He knows what it takes. I like this Miami Heat team, and I don't think no team in the NBA should want to play the Heat. I don't care if you're the 1 seed, the 2 seed. If you're in the West, I believe they are a bad matchup for like every team in the league. They just, the way they play, how they play, the guys that they got on the court, and when they're making shots, man,
They're like
they're
almost
the
impossible
Rockets
to beat.
of last year, but way better defensively.
That play better defense. Yeah, we talked about it a few days ago where I think it was when they were playing the Pacers and kind of smacking them a little bit. We were talking about who they reminded us of, and you said Golden State, but I was like, hold on. I mean, Golden State has two of maybe the 5 greatest shooters of all time, and Steph and Clay. I thought it reminded me a little bit more of San Antonio, the way they move the ball and the way they just have brought guys out of nowhere that you don't expect to get any production from are producing in this Heat culture, as you will. I mean, because they didn't even play Kendrick Nunn in like the first 8 bubble games because he wasn't in good enough shape. I mean, and that was in the middle. There's 8 games before the playoffs, and they weren't even playing their starting point guard because he wasn't in Heat shape, if you will. I mean, that's just how strict they are with a lot of their things. I mean, you've heard many stories about it with Wade and LeBron and Bosh when they were there. I mean, LeBron maybe has the most control of any player. Him and Michael Jordan are probably up there at the top 2. I mean, LeBron didn't have that much control in Miami. I mean, he had as much as he could, but it was still Pat Riley's show.
Yep.
So, yeah, I just really like the Heat. I just really like the makeup of that team. I really do.
I do too.
And
they're if you're a Heat fan, boy, you should be excited about where your future is.
Well, and I mean, Jimmy Butler is very confident that they're going to get another superstar next year.
Oh yeah, I mean, we talked about
years.
this too. Miami is 1,000% a free agent destination. Guys want to go to Miami. Not even you throw in the fact that you got a great owner, great GM, great head coach, been there, done that. That's just icing on the cake because guys like the scene of Miami. They like partying. They like being down in that area of the country. So
definitely,
there's everything about there's no doubt in my mind they get a free agent signing next year that puts them over the top.
Well, and I don't know if it'll be next year because I believe they have max cap space available in the summer of 2021 when there's a guy named Giannis Antetokounmpo who is a free agent that summer. Also, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. I mean, there's a lot of free agents coming in that summer of 21. So that's the big play. So I don't know. Who knows? I do think that in the next 2 years they'll acquire one of the top 10 guys in the league to pair with Adebayo, Butler, Robinson, Hero, and then whoever they scrap off the street who's going to come produce in Miami like they always do.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Let's go over to the other current second round playoff matchup that's going on. Boston put the hurt on Toronto yesterday. And I think if you consistently listen to Jay and I on this podcast, you know that we both like the Raptors a lot, and we both picked the Raptors to win this series. I said Raptors in 6. Jay, I don't know what your prediction was for that.
I don't remember either, but I know I had the Raptors because I took the Raptors to come out of the East.
Going Raptors in 6. I know that first game looked really bad, but it wasn't all that bad if you're very optimistic for the Raptors, which I am, because they shot 10 for 40 from 3 in that first game.
He texted me at the beginning or towards the end, and was just like, they're just flat out missing wide open shots that they usually hit.
They were just missing a ton of shots. I mean, Ibaka, Siakam, Fred VanVleet. I think VanVleet was like 2 of 16. Siakam had 3 fouls in the first quarter, so that just completely got them out of their rhythm. They really, to me, didn't look like they were playing with that Raptor intensity, and that's kind of what Nick Nurse hinted at during the game in the coach's interview. They didn't really seem to play with that fire that they had been since the playoff restarted, or I guess the season has restarted when they were in the bubble, the early round of the playoffs. So I don't expect Boston to shoot that well either. I mean, Marcus Smart, I don't think is going to hit that many shots. I mean, they just were firing on all cylinders, Boston was.
Yeah, a lot of things fell well for Boston yesterday, and I've been a Boston fan last year I picked them to come out of the East. This year I started out picking them coming out of the East, and, after seeing what Toronto did in the bubble, it put me on Toronto's bandwagon. But I still believe Boston's a good team. But the way they shot the ball, I don't think that's consistent for them. Like, especially like you mentioned, guys like Marcus Smart hitting 5 of 9 from the 3.
Yeah. You
just don't expect that from him. And as a team, Boston shot 44% from the 3, and the Raptor starters combined went like 4 of 25. They just couldn't buy a bucket. And it's like,
they could not.
I don't expect Boston to keep shooting that well, and I definitely don't expect Toronto to keep shooting that poorly. So I'll take Toronto in 7 because I do think this is a very good Boston team, a very well coached team. I just think Toronto's the superior team in the way they play. I think bodes well better, but I think this is going to be a fun series too. So right off the bat, we got some fantastic round 2s that I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's some good ones. And the thing I will say that actually for Boston that actually bodes really well for them was Jason Tatum really didn't have that great of a game. I mean, he shot 9 of 18 and only had 21 points, and they still won by damn near 30 points. So but the thing about Boston is they rely, especially with this Gordon Hayward injury, they rely so much on their 5 starters because really who do you play? I mean, you really are only like a 6-7 man team with Hayward, and now you're relying on only 5 guys, and Toronto can get you like 8-9 deep. That just, to me, is a little bit problematic for the Celtics for longevity. I know they've had a lot of time off, and Kemba Walker's knee actually looks fine, and he actually has been playing really good. I mean, 18 and 10, and I mean, he really could get anywhere he wanted on the court yesterday. But I mean, you get just any life into Toronto, and I think they can really just get after you. And I mean, I know Jay and I didn't get on here when the whole protesting was going on and the postponing of the games, but Toronto, I mean, they said they internally discussed leaving altogether, just flat out leaving the bubble and just saying we're not going to play anymore. So, I mean, I think that was something that was also in a lot of these players' mind. I'm not saying that it wasn't in the Celtics' mind either, but I feel like that had something to do with these games, the first day back. I really do. But today, the families were able to get there for these second-round teams. I saw this video on Twitter, which was really just flat out really cool. Fred VanVleet, his son and his daughter got there, and they just went running open arms to go see him because they hadn't seen him. And, I mean, they've been there since like June 22nd, the Raptors have. They've been there longer than anybody. So I think I think will just put some life into these guys because they get to see their families. So I think that's going to help tremendously for Toronto.
Sorry, dude. I'm sitting here watching this
I don't know
Miami
if I lost
game.
you or
No, I'm just pumped about what's going on. Like, it's just a great series. But I was hearing everything you were saying about
I just
Toronto
don't know if I lost
Fred VanVleet.
Yeah.
Nope, I just got caught up in a foul call.
All right, that's
all
cool.
It was. Yeah, that could potentially pump some life back into this Raptors team who came out flat. And you hit the nail right on the head talking about Nick Nurse called them out for being flat. They didn't come out with that same energy. They talked about leaving the bubble. Basically everything you just said, I agree with, and I don't think the Raptors are going to follow that up with the same type of performance.
Yeah.
I could easily see game 2 being a blowout the other way. Toronto beating them by 20.
I really wouldn't be surprised if it went the other way. I really wouldn't. I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Boston wins game 2 and then Toronto reels off 3 straight. I mean, it can go 7. I mean, it really can. I said Toronto in 6, but I wouldn't be surprised if I'm not trying to hedge here. I'm still picking the Raptors, but Boston's a really good team. That. So, yeah.
They could win in 5. They could win in 6. They could win in 7. I could see Toronto winning. I could see Toronto losing next week. I could see Boston winning next week. Basically just giving us everything that really could happen. I need you to put your money on something here. What's going to happen game 2?
I'm going to say Toronto comes out and
Toronto
wins by
15 to 20 points.
I was going to say 10 plus. I think Toronto comes out and kind of lays the hammer a little bit.
Either way, we are both in agreement that Toronto comes out and overwhelmingly wins the game.
I agree.
At no point do you believe Toronto's going to lose.
No. You know what, actually, before we move on to a different series, you know what just annoys the shit out of me, man?
What's going on? Because I got something, too, I wanted to say and haven't brought it up yet.
The announcers, every fucking game, it doesn't matter who's on, they say, oh my God, can you believe if this was in Canada or can you believe if this was in the TD Garden in Boston? I'm like, no fucking shit. It would be a lot different if the home team was playing under their home crowd, but it's not. So stop fucking bringing it up. We're in the second round of the playoffs. We understand what's happening. If you are watching these games, nobody just off the streets doesn't know what's happening in the NBA if you're tuning into the second round of the playoffs. I can't stand they do it every single game. It drives me nuts, man.
That's pretty funny. I'm going to be listening out for that now.
They do it
I haven't really
all
noticed that.
the time.
The thing that drives me
Mike
fucking
Breen
bonkers
especially. God.
is I was just thinking about this when I turned down the sound, because I don't have the sound on right now. I'm just watching and talking to you. I can't hear guys when they drive to the lane, and I just immediately equated it to NFL wide receivers. How no matter if the ball was overthrown, if they just flat out drop it, no matter what, when a ball is thrown to a receiver, they always look at the ref for a flag, right? I just noticed every time a player drives to the rim, all I hear is, "Whoa!" Like he just got murdered. And I'm like, dude, you don't get fouled every time. And I just noticed that I haven't heard it yet. And I just remember, like, every time you're watching the game with sound, that's all you hear. So I'm just like, that just came to my mind. I was like, that's so fucking annoying that every time somebody drives to the lane, they're yelling like they just got murdered, and it's not the case. And I just fully equate it to an NFL wide receiver, and it's getting on my last nerve. Just play ball. It's like every time someone drives, they're looking at the ref like, what? You didn't see that? You're not going to call that? What do you want them to call every single play?
Yeah, there's not a foul on every single play. I know. And it's so funny you said that, because in that game 5 with the Lakers and with Portland, I mean, AD fouled CJ McCollum right at about the free throw line on a jumper, and you just hear him yell, "Hey!" so clearly. Yeah.
Yep. And it's probably more pronounced now because of the whole COVID situation. There's no fans, and you can hear everything, which I said from the beginning is pretty cool. I like hearing what the players say, but it's also very annoying that you also hear them yell every time they drive.
Yeah, and I also feel like since the NBA restarted, I mean, maybe it's just because I watch a lot of basketball anyways, but maybe since they were on like all day long, I could kind of watch them throughout the day. But I just feel like they're complaining more about the officiating. And don't get me wrong, it's been bad, but there's been more complaining, I feel like, in these, month and a half that we've had basketball back. There's just been more complaining to the officials than I've seen in a really long time. It's so annoying.
It is. Just at some point, man, just play. And
even the guys you don't think complain do, because I know, because I've pointed this out to you a lot. Just watch Kawhi Leonard when he drives to the rim. Dude looks like he's riding a mechanical fucking bull, snapping his head back. I mean, just watch it. It's disgusting. God.
I've watched since you pointed it out. Yeah, and he's not the only one.
No, and he's not. But people don't say anything about it because he's quiet and awkward and weird, and it pisses me the fuck off. It's not even. It's more Twitter and the media that makes me dislike Kawhi more than I actually dislike, because I actually like the guy. I think he's a tremendous player. It's just he's extremely overrated, and he just is just, I don't know, whatever. So, but let's
go to another series.
Let's briefly just talk about the Clippers beating the Mavericks, because after they beat them in 6 games, which to me was a very unimpressive 6-game series with the Clippers, because Paul George, outside of his game 5, he's averaging like 14 points on like 25% shooting. Kawhi basically carried them a lot, and Dallas only had Kristaps Porzingis for a total of 10 quarters in this entire series. And Luka Doncic and Trey Burke and Seth Curry took the vaunted Clippers, who are by far the best team in the league, what I've heard all year long, to 6 games. And I just was not impressed with any of the victories outside of game 5 for the Clippers, when they scored 150 points and beat the Mavericks by like 40. But 1 game out of 6, if you're really only going to show up once out of every 6 games and you expect to win a championship like that, it's just, I haven't been that impressed with them, and I haven't seen this vaunted juggernaut that we are supposed to be seeing from the Clippers this year. So I want to know your thoughts on the Clippers, Jay, because I just don't know when they're running out of time to really show up, because if they get to the conference finals and it's the Lakers, they can't just pick 1 or 2 games out of a 7-game series to try and show up.
Yeah, me and you are in the same boat as them, and every every game that goes by, I like the Clippers players less and less and how they act on the court, how they carry themselves. And there's just a couple guys on the Clippers that I actually like and don't mind as players and mind watching them. But game-wise, yeah, they got to show up for more than one game. That's obvious. They let an injured Luka Doncic and a bunch of guys beat them in a game that mattered. I'm with you. I haven't been impressed with the Clippers up to this point. I still don't know how they're going to match up with the Lakers when it comes to a 7-game series. They don't have anybody down low to stop AD. They can throw bodies at LeBron as well, but he's going to find open shooters, and if they're hitting, good luck.
Yeah. One of the things about you talked about it, how you just I dislike a lot of the players on the Clippers. They're one of the easiest teams to root against because of how they play. They walk around like they've won 3 straight championships. I mean, the only guy that doesn't talk is Kawhi, and he's the only one that's actually done something. Patrick Beverley averages like 7 points and screams 47 times a game and tries to get up in everybody's face. Same thing with Montrezl Harrell, who I actually like. I like his game, but he's also another guy who tries to get everybody's face. Marcus Morris flat out is just a dirty player. He purposely stepped on Luka Doncic's hurt ankle. You saw it. He tried to deny it. Then he basically just karate chopped him in the cheek 2 nights ago. He also tried to deny that. So he just has a track record for himself. I mean, he also has headbutted Ben Simmons in the knee when he played for I think it was I don't know if it was the Pistons, or he's been on a few teams. The GM for the Suns, like 2 nights ago, said, I tried to tell you guys all about, the former GM was like, I tried to tell you about Marcus Morris, whatever. And he threw the ball off of Justin Anderson's head before. So there's a difference between, I tweeted this, there's a difference just between a tough player and a dirty player. And Marcus Morris is a dirty player. So there.
I agree. Kevin Garnett was a tough player. He was a guy that you didn't want to go against, but he played by the rules. He was well respected by players in the league. He was just known as like an enforcer, or I mean, when someone would shoot the ball up after a whistle was blown, he would knock the ball out of the room. He didn't want you to see it go. He played a lot of mind games, and he was tough down low. He wasn't scared of anybody, but he also wasn't a dirty player. Like you said, there's a difference between being, I don't know, quote unquote, an enforcer, or somebody who is just, I don't even know how to explain Kevin Garnett, but he is like the guy I think of when I think
he was intimidating.
Yes, but not in a dirty way.
No, he wasn't trying to go. He wasn't trying to step on your ankles on a jump shot. He wasn't going to do anything outside of the context of the rules of the game.
Yeah. So I have honestly lost so much respect for Marcus Morris and a lot of these Clippers players in general. Yeah. The best player, the one that should be talking the most shit, doesn't say a word.
The one that is deserving to talk a little bit does not.
Yeah, and the guys that aren't producing anything and having to be carried by this man are speaking the loudest. And you said it best. The Clippers are very easy to root against, and they make it very easy on other people to root against them.
Yes, they do. And the thing is, I texted you this last night. No matter, we'll talk about this Denver-Utah series in a minute, but whoever ends up winning tomorrow night, I really think the Clippers are going to have a very easy road through both of them, because neither of those teams have anyone who could match up with Kawhi. They just don't. So Kawhi's going to absolutely have his way with both of those guys in that series. So, and they're probably going to win in 5 games in whoever they play. I'm calling it right now. And then you're going to hear again how great the Clippers are, how there's nothing to worry about. So I'm telling you, it's coming.
Oh, I agree. I don't even think it's close that when it's all said and done, you look back and look at who the Lakers had to go through to get to the finals, and who the Clippers had to go through and get to the finals, and see which one's the better, was the tougher matchup. Yeah. But you'll hear that the Clippers, have had such a tough matchup. And like you said, either one that wins tomorrow, neither one of them's a great team.
No,
they're not. Clearly have flaws. And I've said from the beginning, I don't believe Denver or Utah has a chance to make it to the finals, because neither one has proven to me when it comes to playoff times that they can do anything of substance and win a series that they need to win. And they, to me, always fold. And of course, the Clippers got their pick at either one of them.
Those guys in the second round. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we talk about that one, let's just touch on this Lakers beating the Blazers. I mean, I was never worried after that game 1 loss to the Blazers. I was never worried, period, in any of these games that the Lakers had over the Blazers. The Lakers have been my title pick all year long. I've never wavered on it. I've never been like scared or worried about them coming together and finding their rhythm. It just was going to take it. The only thing I will say is it took a little longer for LeBron to find his legs than I thought it was going to. But again, I mean, this guy, outside of 2011, when he just completely folded in the championship in the finals, which everybody knows that's his downfall of his career, that's the one thing people can say he failed in legitimately. Because other than that, if you haven't, and Nick Wright said this on First Things First, if you don't have at least 4 Hall of Famers, you have no shot at beating this guy in a 7-game series. Because in all 3 losses to Golden State, I mean, they at least had 3 Hall of Famers. The 1 year, he didn't have Kyrie or Kevin Love. The 2014 finals, when they got blown out by the Spurs, Wade and Bosh, I don't even think combined, averaged 30 points a game when LeBron averaged like 28, 10, and 7 in that series. So we still, if you don't have that many guns to beat this guy, you just have no shot. I mean, he's just proven that over and over again. And I just don't, I know people just love to hate on him and do these things, but I think everyone just quickly forgets it was only 2 years ago. The run he took, again, he's taken the 2 worst teams in finals histories to the finals. That 2018 Cavs team had absolutely no reason they should have been in the finals outside of LeBron James. It's just asinine. They just forget like this guy exists because of he hasn't won in a few years. And so it's just, and if him and AD have games like that, good luck beating them 4 times out of 7. It's just good luck.
And fighters on because we've given our criticisms of him, but he does make it when it comes on. And I thought he said it best this morning when I heard him say basically that, you know, people are now all of a sudden talking about the Blazers. Yeah, the Lakers should have beat them. They were an 8 seed. And he was like, look, yeah, this is what happens to LeBron, and it's baffling that nobody understands it. So this greatest 8 seed of all time that you're telling me before this series, if they would have been fully healthy the entire season, they would have been a 3 or 4 seed in the West. Now LeBron beats them, whoops their ass in 5 games, and now all of a sudden you got to blow up the franchise, trade everybody, start over, which happens every time he beats someone. He always goes in as the team against him as the favorite. Then all of a sudden, once he beats them, now they were supposed to be beaten, and then they have to blow it up because it's not good enough to beat LeBron.
I mean, a team that won 73 fucking games had to recruit Kevin Durant to beat this man.
Yeah, so this happens all the time. I haven't wavered off of the Lakers either. Me and you have been on from day one. The Lakers going to win the title, and you know there's a difference between playoff LeBron and
you're seeing it.
Yes, you are.
I mean, he shot over in the last 3 games of that final. I think that he shot over 60% from 3 on 6 attempts in that series.
And I think he's having a big factor on the good psyche of AD.
Absolutely.
Who has been known.
He makes it so easy for Anthony Davis.
Yeah,
Anthony Davis has never seen this many easy shots since high school.
But everybody's been saying, and it did happen a few times in the first series where in the fourth quarter, AD just kind of goes quiet and you don't really see him do what he had done the previous 3. But I believe he's had a couple big games with LeBron. I think LeBron's doing a tremendous job of building AD's confidence, which is what he's needed to do from the beginning. And it's working. He's reaping the benefits from it now. And yeah, there's not a team in the playoffs that has an answer for Anthony Davis down low.
No.
The one team that possibly had an answer is the 76ers, but no one believed they would have beaten the Lakers, and they're no longer even a threat to them. So
I mean, they got swept in the first round of the playoffs.
So who is going to stop Anthony Davis down low when he's playing the way he played last game?
I just got 2 more things on the Lakers, and then we can move on. So I've heard a lot of people talk about they're still a little bit worried about their offense, which I'm not, because it just took a few games for their shooters to just get used to these gyms. It took them a little bit longer than some other teams. Now, Danny Green, KCP are actually hitting shots, Kuzma's, and they're so good defensively. They're going to suffocate teams defensively because how good they are. Because their guards, Caruso, Green, Caldwell Pope, when they get Rondo back, I mean, these guys, you saw how good they were against McCollum and Dame Lillard. I mean, they still got theirs because they're that great, but they made it so tough on them. And they're just they get easy buckets in transition from how good their defense is. That's just going to be huge. I think they're the best defensive team in the league because I think they were third throughout the entirety of the season, but they were behind Milwaukee and Toronto. And Milwaukee and Toronto also got a feast on like Cleveland and the Knicks and the Hornets and the Pistons and some really bad teams to really improve their defensive rating throughout the year when we know the West is just deeper. I mean, you saw that when they brought 13 teams from the West to the bubble and only 9 from the East. That's just, if I can't make that more clear for you, I don't know how to do it. And then the second thing for the Lakers, you saw in that first game or two, because in the second game, the Lakers won by like a lot, but LeBron only had 10 points. The Whiteside and Nurkic made it a little bit difficult for him to get to the rim. And those are 2 7-footers. The Rockets don't have any 7-footers, and the Clippers have Zubats, but I mean, he's not really known to be a shot blocker or a guy to challenge you at the rim, really, or at least not yet in his career. So once LeBron gets by his first guy, there is no one at the rim to stop him. And that is just like, he hasn't dealt with that in years with a team. I mean, he's going to get the Rockets in round 2 most likely because I think they beat Oklahoma City tonight. And then most likely he's going to get the Clippers in round 3. And once you beat the first guy off the dribble, I mean, he's got no one at the rim to stop him. And that's been like the biggest thing that's hurt LeBron over his career is 7-footers at the rim. And there's no team in the West that has that. So, and I texted you this other night. I said, he just looks like he's just got more pep in his step. He looks more springy than he was the first couple games. And that's what I said. It took a little bit longer than I expected for him to get his legs under him. But now that he does, whoo.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we can kind of touch on the Rocket series a little bit because that's what we both believe is going to happen. We can't really go into much detail because the Thunder really do still have a chance to win that series, and it could be Lakers Thunder. But I really believe it's going to be the Lakers Rockets, and
I do too.
I think we're going to hear the same thing again. Nightmare matchup for the Lakers.
Yes.
The Rockets could really win this series. I think people are going to hedge on what they say more this time around because I think a lot of people look fucking stupid after what they said about the Blazer series. But I do think you're going to hear a lot of people say this isn't a walk in the park or little shit like that. Or Rockers definitely have a chance to win, but I don't know if I'd put my name out on picking them to win. Shit like that. But I see it the exact opposite. I think the Blazers were a tougher matchup for the Lakers because of the guard play with the Blazers. They could both hit threes, and they're both pretty good when driving to the rim. Whereas the Rockets, no one fucking is going to guard Westbrook at the 3. Let that dude shoot all day. And the Lakers have the best rim protection in all of basketball, and it's not even close. And the referees give a little bit extra in the playoffs. You can get away with a little bit more. So James Harden's still going to get his calls, but not nearly as many. And you couple that with, I don't care what anybody says, stars get calls. So James Harden is a superstar in the league, but he's also going against Anthony Davis and LeBron James, who are also superstars in the league. So to me, that kind of cancels out some foul calls that both would get or give in a game. I just believe this is a bad matchup for the Rockets and a very, very good matchup for the Lakers. I think the Lakers are going to slow the pace down, make the Rockets play their game, and they're not going to have an answer for Anthony Davis down low or LeBron. I would love to see the Lakers come out and do what they did in Game 2 against the Blazers, where LeBron did a lot of posting up and fed everybody out of the post. If you double him, he can pass, but if you leave him one-on-one, he's going to destroy whoever the fuck you got guarding him from the Rockets all day long. So, to me, bad matchup for the Rockets. I was more, and I'm a Rockets guy. I've been the one that said that
you were definitely
James
more
Harden
of a believer
and
than
Westbrook,
I was.
But I just think they match up bad against the Lakers. And it's not even that I'm hating on the Clippers. The Rockets would have had a way better chance playing the Clippers than they do against the Lakers, in my personal opinion.
I agree with that. And like I just mentioned, once LeBron gets past that first guy, on the Rockets, they have no one to stop him at the rim. Absolutely no one. And the same thing with Anthony Davis. I mean, PJ Tucker can only guard one fucking person. PJ Tucker can't guard both LeBron and AD when they share the court.
No,
so,
and that pick and roll that was working against Nurkic and Whiteside is going to be unstoppable against the Rockets.
Yeah, and I'll say this right now. I don't even know if it's that bold, but I'll say my prediction right now. The Lakers and the Clippers both win their second-round matchups in 5 games. I think more people are going to view it that both teams are going to struggle with these two, with either whether it's Denver and Utah for the Clippers or if it's Houston or Oklahoma City for the Lakers. I think people are going to think they're going to be more competitive, and they might be close games, but I just believe they'll both win in 5 because those are two just clear, better teams. And like you said, the matchup, I like this matchup better for the Lakers than I do. I mean, the Rockets are just going to be outmanned. I mean, they really are. And to talk about this Rockets and this Rockets and Thunder, I mean, after the Thunder were able to climb back in to these 2 games after going down 0-2, and it basically looked hopeless for the Thunder. The Thunder kind of figured some things out, and they were like, okay, we just run this 3-guard system with Paul, Gilgeous-Alexander, and Schroeder, and then in Game 5, they like completely abandoned that game plan that won them the games 3 and 4. I mean, Shai Gilgeous only took 8 shots. I mean, Lou Dort, who, credit to him for getting in the league, being a good defender, led the Thunder in shot attempts in Game 5 when they got blown out. Lou Dort, I'm sorry, you are a good defensive player, but you should never be the guy on a team to lead in shot attempts, especially not with a guy with Chris Paul and Danilo Gallinari, who only took 5 shots in 22 minutes. He was awful. I just didn't understand the Thunder's game plan at all. That game was over by the end of the third quarter. I don't understand, man, what the Thunder were doing in Game 5. I mean, Russ was back for the Rockets. I mean, this was like James Harden's most efficient game that he's ever had like in his career. So it has been the perfect storm for OKC. But their offensive game plan was just shit.
Yeah, but I will tell you this: the Thunder have earned my respect because I thought they were a good story. But
I think
if you
said
remember
they were going to get swept.
Yep, so you remember I came on here and I said they were a nice story, but I don't believe they stand a chance against the Rockets. And here we are going to a Game 6, and Houston's only up 1 game on them. So they've earned my respect. I still think the Rockets are the better team. I think they have the better roster, and I think they're going to win tonight as well. But shout out to the Thunder for what they're doing.
I mean, the Thunder, like I said, in Games 3 and 4, they figured some stuff out because they were just like, okay, they can't really stay in front of Shai Gilgeous or Chris Paul or Dennis Schroeder. That 3-guard lineup that was really good for them was really good. And like I said, I don't know what Billy Donovan was doing in Game 5 or Chris Paul, really. I mean, Russell Westbrook goes 3 for 13 and you lose by 30 fucking points. Man, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
You got anything else you want to add on that series, Jay, or you want to jump over to Denver and Utah?
Nope. Let's go to Denver, Utah. Close it out.
All right. So we were split on this series. You and I were. We were split. You were going Nuggets. I was taking the Jazz. I mean, it looked like after the Nuggets took Game 1, then Jazz win 3 straight. Now the Nuggets have won 2 in a row, and Jamal Murray looked like he's turning into damn near like the new Steph Curry with the shots that he's making. I mean, I think in his last 3 games, he scored 50, 42, and 50. And I believe I heard this today where I think there was only 2 players in NBA history who's ever scored multiple 50-point games in a series. One was Michael Jordan. I don't remember the other one. But to put yourself in that category is unreal. He has been just 47 a game, 64% shooting, 7 assists, 8 rebounds in those past 3 games, and only 5 turnovers. I mean, this is just what... And no one, I don't think anybody expected this from Jamal Murray, but just the consistency.
If you said you did, you're a liar.
You are. It's just the consistency that everybody has wanted from Jamal Murray. That's why
I don't think Jamal Murray expected this.
That's why it's just so hard to trust Denver, because I think in games 2 and 3 he was terrible. I think he only scored like 14 and 12 points in those 2 games and just was really bad. So, and then he goes off for averaging 47 over the next 3. So I wouldn't be surprised if he scores 7 in game 7 or if he went off for 62. I just don't know. But I mean, he's getting paid max money. He should be similar to this every single night. I'm not saying he has to score 40 or 50, but I mean, he's got to be a very consistent player for the Nuggets to be taken seriously ever.
And you know what's wild is basically every time he's gone off, Donovan Mitchell's gone off for 40-something, yeah. And we don't even talk about it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic duel between those two guys. And
it's turned into a good little rivalry.
It is.
Opinion. I think it's going to be one going forward. I think it's a good, healthy one that the NBA could really use, and it's been fun to watch. Like you said, we were split on it. I'm still taking the Nuggets. You're still taking the Jazz.
I am.
And Jamal Murray has been too inconsistent. Like, this is the same thing we were talking about Dame Lillard, coming into the Lakers series and what he was doing and him yelling out, put some respect on my name. And then he kind of folded against the Lakers. And I could see a very similar thing happening against the Clippers. I don't see him doing this against the Clippers.
And it's just Denver, I mean, really, after those first 4 games, I mean, it was clear that Denver just didn't have anybody to stay with Donovan Mitchell. They've kind of shut that narrative down a little bit because they've thrown Jeremy Grant at him, who's done a fairly decent job. They've also used Torrey Craig, and now they got Gary Harris back, so they at least have guys they can match up with them. On the other side, Utah, they have nobody who can guard Jamal Murray right now. I mean, Royce O'Neal has tried. I mean, I think today, which was surprising, I heard Jamal Murray is shooting 70% at the rim. That's with Rudy Gobert on the opposing end, who is a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year.
Arguably the best rim protector in the league.
Exactly. And a guy who's Jamal Murray, 6'2", possibly, is shooting 70% at the rim. That's unreal. I mean, Gobert just has been really pretty bad in this series, all in all, and especially in the past 2 games. And Joe Ingles has been terrible. You and I were just texting about him last night. I said he looked like a damn zoo instructor, not an NBA player. So Donovan Mitchell's doing basically everything he can, and it's just still not enough because Jamal Murray's matching him, and their supporting cast, Denver's just getting a little bit more right now than Utah is because Mike Malone's made all the adjustments, and Quinn Snyder's kind of just reverting to the same stuff that he always does, and it just hasn't worked for the past 2 games.
Nope, and that's kind of why I picked Denver from the beginning. I said I just think Denver has the better roster when it comes down to it, and I still believe that. They didn't really get much from Michael Porter Jr., who was kind of my little X factor in this series, and they still won.
He's so bad defensively; they can't play him sometimes.
And now they got Gary Harris back. So, I mean, when Gary Harris was on the court yesterday, they were a plus 16 in the plus minus. So he's doing something. He brings it defensively. He doesn't even have his legs fully back underneath them just yet. So, scoring 4 points, they were a plus 16 with him on the court still. Yeah. So
Utah
I think
definitely
that's a big
misses
get for them.
Bogdanovich. I mean, this is
no doubt
a real clear series where they miss Bogdanovich, a guy who I think he averaged 20 points a game for him this year and shot like 42% from 3. I mean, if they even get a little bit production from Joe Ingles the past 2 games, they probably win one of those games because they've both been close. It's just I think he's had like 4 points in 3 of the 6 games so far. That's just not going to get it done from who they need him to be their 3rd or 4th best player on a given night, depending on what Conley's doing, what Gobert's doing offensively, because Gobert wants the ball offensively. The dude just has no post moves at all, and he's honestly, as supposedly supposed to be one of the best defenders in the league, is just kind of getting outdueled right now by Jokic on the offensive end. I mean, I don't know. Gobert just hasn't looked the same the past couple games. And I think he's uncomfortable because how far he has to play away from the rim because Jokic is such a good shooter. It's just he's not able to hover down low as much as he would like.
It's just a very interesting series, and I still say it's the best series so far.
I'd say it's probably the best series of round one, for sure. And like you said, it could be a matchup. I think Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell are only like 23 or 24 years old, the both of them. So, I mean, this is something like a duel, like you mentioned, that can come for years and years.
Yep.
If both of them stay in there on their respective
I agree
teams.
with that. And I don't want to jump ship so fast about this, but I just got an alert that Derwin James is out 6 to 8 months.
I just got that too.
The only thing I really want to say is I hope to God he doesn't just keep getting injured every year and be just another one of those players that's like what could have been.
Yeah, because, I mean, he is just a fantastic talent. I mean, he's got all the tools. You see the difference he makes when he's actually on the field for the Chargers.
Yeah, after his rookie year, some people were saying he's the best safety in the league.
Yeah, that's a tough spot for him. And I think Mike Williams is hurt for the Chargers too. It seems every year the Chargers have been haunted by injuries for the past, 15 years, it seems. Yeah.
I hope he doesn't stay injured.
Yeah. But, I mean, other than that, I was good on that Utah-Denver series. I'm looking forward to tomorrow night's game. I think it's going to be another close one. Another
you sticking Utah?
Duel between these two guys. I'm sticking with Utah. I am. Okay. I think they'll get it done. I think it's going to be hard for Denver to get real 3 straight games off. And also, you expect that Jamal Murray is just going to not hit every step back 3 he takes.
You would think, but right now, I believe otherwise.
All right. But, all right, Jay, let's get out of here on that. Oh, Brandon Ingram just won Most Improved Player.
Did you see how they told him?
Was it his parents over Zoom or something?
Yeah, they Zoom called him. That was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. But props to him. Well-deserved. I thought Bam Adebayo should have won, but Brandon Ingram would have been number 2. Also had a tremendous season for the Pelicans. So good things for them to come because he's a good player. So, all right, just wanted to add that little nugget in there. So, all right. Please subscribe to the Unwanted Opinions podcast if you have not already. We're on every major podcast platform. You can also check us out on YouTube, Unwanted Opinions podcast, YouTube page, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Check us out there. Email us, unwantedopinionspodcast@gmail.com. Many ways to get in touch with us. We're active on social media. Reach out to us, whatever.
I'll always tell you, Nick's a savage on Twitter and doesn't hold back.
Yep.
And just to end on this note, Miami and Milwaukee are now tied. 63-63. Let's go watch the second half. Let's get out of here. Until next time.